welcome back to another episode of the Impression Series podcast. So, we are about 5 episodes down, and this is the fifth episode. And over these 5 episodes, you must have seen that there is a transition that the entire show has gone through. Earlier, we would have these conversations on the Biblio Babu show, but now with Impression Series, there's a purpose that the show is working towards, and that purpose is how to build up your brand, how to cover your journey, say from either you could be a new startup, either you could be in the transition of closing down one and starting another one, or you could be into a transition of getting from a full-fledged job into your own business or building up your own brand, like something that I've done. Now, in the previous episode, we spoke to Anant, and we went through his journey along with him, and he told us why did he get into the business of branding, and how did his startup evolved from a management consulting firm to a tech firm, and then eventually someone who's now helping businesses build up a brand. Branding is just not that. Like I also mentioned in the previous episode, it's a journey, it's a transition, and for you to be able to what the journey of a brand is, you need to build up a brand for yourself first. So my today's guest has gone through that transition, from being a consultant to brands, to writing a book, to speaking to more than 10,000 students from different domains, to mentoring MBAs, to now collaborating with brands, holding their hands, working not only on the brand itself, but working on the DNA of the brand. What is it that is at the core of a brand that needs to be harnessed, to be brought out, so that the business, the people working for the business, and the customers, everything works in a sync. My today's guest is Piyush Sandhane, who's again a co-founder with On Purpose Brand. Like I said, On Purpose Branding kya hai, what is the journey of OPB, that we'll have a separate conversation with Piyush and Anant at a later stage. But for today, let me introduce you to Piyush. Hi Piyush, welcome to the show.
Hi, Amandeep. I'm so happy that you've called me here.
Thank you for taking out time. So you're very vocal, and you always emphasize on not only a brand, but the DNA, what is at the core that needs to be brought out, and of course framed into a business perspective wherein the money should start coming in. So before we get on to those conversations, how has your journey been? Like, you've done so many things in such a short span of time. How has your journey been? How did it all start?
So, thank you for first of all giving an elaborate introduction. Uh, of what I've done and what I've been through. But there is one more side that first of all I'd like to share with the audience. Your audience also. It's something that it's not spoken, uh, and everything that is today, say when you say that I'm the co-founder of On Purpose Brand, so the name also I'll come to that, but it has a start many years back. So I want to share something where it's not been spoken about. I've always been introduced in these speaking sessions as someone who's trained 10,000
Correct.
students and participants, authored a book, um and done so and so many things. But there is the other side, I would want people to know. So I'd like to introduce myself in a very different manner. So I am Piyush Sandhane. I didn't have a very smooth education journey. Okay, that's one thing that I would like everyone to know about. I started working very early in life, but that was out of choice. I love and kind of being with the trend, and any new thing that I would love to learn, I like to learn about it. I like to know more about it. That's something that I want people to know. Today I get paid to think different, and think deep. So that's been today's position. Cooking has been my, say, stress buster. So
Oh.
that's, yeah. So whenever I feel that I'm very cramped, so I go and probably
Cook something.
cook something, so that that's the recipe. It's my own
Right.
recipe of doing something new. And I love to meet people, I love to interact with people and share ideas which could, probably create some impact out there. So that is something, I really want your audience to also know, because there of course people look at where you've
Of
reached.
course.
And I would especially like to tell everyone that I have failed zillions of times, I still fail. And I feel that failure is the lovely part of
Of course.
anyone's
Any
life,
journey. Correct.
because it's just an event.
Of course.
It's not the character, it's just the event. You are allowed to fail. And I would love to fail more doing new things. So this is about me, this is about candidly me, because it's a candid talk show. uh, but having said that, uh, when you ask what's been my journey, I have many stories to share now. You need to ask me the right question. You know that what would you like to know about my past or things like that.
So let's talk about, you know, there's a very strong statement that you've given that, number one, you accept that you failed a zillion times. But after that, what you said is that you're allowed to fail. And I think that's at the core of every learning that everyone goes through. You can't learn without failing. So I would request you to take us through that journey of the zillion failures that you've had. What are some important failures that kind of shifted your trajectory?
Right. So let me start right from college. I said that my education was never a smooth journey.
Smooth
Now I would
journey.
like to, it was not a failure on my end, but it was some kind of failure.
Correct.
You will not believe that I'm an engineering dropout. I call myself a dropout, but I never dropped out on my own. My college just got shut down
Oh,
in
oh God,
in
that's
the
unfortunate.
third year. When I was in my third year, my college got shut down, and immediately, I don't want to name which college
Of
and what
course.
reasons,
Yeah,
but
correct.
it was not the students' fault. It got shut down, and I came back. It was like a snake and ladder game where you're growing, and then all of a sudden there's a snake, and it just come
Correct.
down to square one.
Square one.
That was a point where you know that was the real shocker of my life, when my all my friends were finishing up their graduation, probably planning their masters, and here I am back
Square one.
at someone called as a 12th pass guy. Not that I was not doing well in my academics, so I was a distinction holder. So a
Oh
brilliant
God,
guy coming back in time, it was an horrible experience for me
I'm
as
sure.
well as my parents, who thought it was their fault
Of course.
because they put me into that institute.
Into college.
And then that shocker gave me two things. One is time to really rethink and rebuild on exactly who I am and what I should be doing. It gave me a time to put myself into an uncomfortable area. So I exposed myself into getting into uncomfortable zones. And it gave me time to do different things. If I was a normal engineer, I would have passed out my engineering,
Of course. The normal
probably,
course.
did some masters, and I would have been in some
Some
job.
job.
So that impact that happened in my life, actually gave me, it asked me to pause, reflect, and then the question was about, do I complicate it further or do I simplify it further?
Hmm.
What I chose was just to make things simple for me,
Correct.
clearer for me. And that's where my the name, or the underlying theme of purpose, hit me very early in life. Today I use this word very abundantly, but
Correct.
where it hit me was right in the college. Why? Because I'll tell you that story also. Now my name is Piyush, and Piyush actually means, if you look at the mythology, it means amrit.
Correct.
जो सागर मंथन में जो अमृत आए थे, तो
Right.
उसमें से पीयूष नाम का अमृत था,
Correct.
which means sweet milk.
Correct.
I questioned myself, when if my name is Piyush, I'm Amrit, I'm supposed to actually do something good to others. But the purpose of Amrit is doing good to others, or probably save someone from something, some bad
Correct.
thing. Where I started questioning myself, no, about me, who I am, what does it mean? I'm not trying to live by the name, but I'm just trying to say that if you're here for something, it needs to be defined.
Absolutely.
And that started right in my college.
College.
And that was a time when I have this belief till today, and I tell all the students also that when you don't have anything, that's the time you start thinking, what do I really have?
Very thoughtful, very deep.
and
Exactly. Right.
and I always, I was bought into that situation in my life. Life gave me that situation. I don't have anything. I don't have a college, I don't have a degree, I don't have something called as eligibility.
Correct.
That put me into situation, you don't have anything, then what do I have?
What do you have?
So that discovery within yourself started very early. That's where I figured out that I need to have skills, I need to have competence, I have some capability, but I have some untapped potential, and I need to tell people what I get for them. So you'll not believe me that my first job was when I was 12th pass, but I got a very, very good job only with this factor of what I could get on the table.
How old were you when the
So it,
institutional fiasco kind of happened, if I may call it?
so this is when I was engineering second year. So say, so you do your 11, 12 by 18, 19, and
So
I think
2021.
21, yeah, 21 years of age.
How did you bring yourself, or rather, let me rephrase this. How did you kind of get the, for a lack of better word, let me call it courage? How did you get the courage to kind of get back on? Because honestly, most people, if that something of that sort had to happen even to me, I would kind of just take a back seat, sit at home, and think, get engrossed in that whirlpool of thoughts, and eventually come out someone who's very distracted and waste 2 years.
Right.
How did you pull yourself back up? What were those things? As very aptly mentioned, right? You had nothing, and then when you ask that question to yourself, what do you have? What were those things that gave you the courage to kind of rebuild yourself?
Right. So one thing I would like to clear that, that whirlpool is never going to go away. It's going to be a part of
It's
it.
always there.
Someone who is impacted in the wrong way goes into some kind of turmoil, and
Correct.
I've been through that. So I don't want to say that I never had that turmoil and I was already sorted. No. uh, but while you take the back seat, what do you do while you're taking the back seat actually defines what is the outcome,
What
right?
is the outcome?
Right.
Absolutely.
So when I took a back seat, as I started assessing what I have, so I was already into performing arts. So I used to do a
Oh,
lot
is
of
it?
theater, dance, and things like that.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
So I used to also teach at that
Okay.
point. So I used to do a lot of choreography. I used to go to, in fact, I used to go to my own school a lot of times. They used to call me, even though I had passed out around, say 7 years later also.
Later.
And I asked myself, okay, I have a talent, I have certain learned skills, I have some logic. So how do I really, put this in good use? So one thing, now when you said how did you get the courage? I'll come to that point now. There was no courage. Simply speaking, I was not there sitting and saying I would do something, outrageously, powerfully different, brave. Nothing like that. It was just one amateur thought that I had.
Okay.
मेरे दोस्त आगे चले गए,
मुझे भी जाना है.
मुझे उनके साथ कल जब मैं उनसे मिलूंगा, I don't want to look like I've lost time and I'm not able to cope up to where they've reached. थोड़ा
Hmm.
amateur लगेगा because at that
Of
point of
course.
time, but that was the only thing that even if they finish their further education, they get jobs. The moment they finish, I will do certain things in such way that when we sit, it will be equals.
Unequal. Right.
I think no courage. It was just something that I had it, maybe a fear of not being left behind in time, and not in terms of talent but in time.
Time.
So मुझे ये नहीं चाहिए था कि इसके 3 साल वेस्ट हो गए इसलिए ये पीछे रह गए. I didn't want that to, not my parents saying that,
Correct.
nor my friends saying that, no, not anyone saying that. So I said the only way to do it is I do 2 3 things at the
At the
same
same
time.
time.
So while they started learning further, क्योंकि जर्नी
Of
स्मूथ है ना,
course. Of course.
और यहाँ पे तो ऑब्स्टिकल्स आ गए. So what I
Correct.
did was I started teaching dance at different I started a small business, so where I used to teach dance. There I got to understand that I had some other age groups, so I had some ladies who used to come to learn.
Hmm.
I figured out that they don't want to learn dance, they want to let go something in their life and
Oh,
express. Then I implemented
correct.
theater techniques and put life skills into their offering, which was
Oh,
a
that's
rave.
amazing.
Which was a rave.
Of course.
I said creativity is impacting people because they are not creative and they want solutions. They want to feel happy. They want a place to express. So that was something I used to do in terms of because you'll ask me how have you interacted with 10,000 people. So I started that very early, and I started doing these engaging programs with people where it was not about theory, it was not about presentations, it was all about doing creative,
Doing what you do best.
doing what I would do. That was my, I said, one of the key part was talent.
Correct.
I also started doing a job, so I said I got a job
Correct.
at
You
the
got a
12th
job.
pass,
Yeah.
and I also started studying simultaneously.
Okay.
So I dropped out of engineering, and because now it was a chance, I said, an opportunity to do something different. I always had this interest in doing something on my own, so I started studying business.
Okay.
So accounting का knowledge zero, लेकिन because that entire drive was there. So what complemented me was also studying business, because I
Correct.
was doing something as a business. I was doing a job. I was understanding how corporates work and business work. So I said I'll study business. By the way, मैं accounting में भी fail हुआ 2 बार, क्योंकि अगर आप इंजीनियरिंग बैकग्राउंड से हो, आप इंजीनियरिंग मैथमेटिक्स करके आए हो, आपको डेबिट क्रेडिट तो आना नहीं है.
नहीं समझ में आएगा.
So
Right.
but then I made sure that I crossed that. Further, मास्टर्स भी खुद से ही स्पॉन्सर किया, खुद से ही पढ़ाई की, while I was doing a lot of other things. So I realized that education or learning cannot be a linear process. कि पहले मैं
Of
डिग्री कर
course.
लूँ, फिर मैं जॉब
Masters.
कर लूँ.
Correct.
नहीं, आप सीख भी सकते हो, आप अपने आप को एक्सपोज भी कर सकते हो, अपने आप को अनकंफर्टेबल जोन में डाल के कुछ सीख भी, मतलब वहाँ से कुछ अप्लाई भी कर सकते हो,
Correct.
और आप जॉब भी कर सकते हो.
So while you were going through all of this, right, having multiple streams of businesses, having a job, and then having your academics, where you also saw that you may not be performing up to the optimum level. At this junction, there's a lot of energy drain. There's a lot of conscious thinking drain. By
Right.
conscious thinking, I mean you are stressed because you're thinking about all the things at the same time. How did you kind of sail through that stress? How did you make sure that you are at it and you're not letting loose of, letting things go off your hand?
So I will follow it up with one more belief that I always carry, that if you have nothing to lose, you're always to gain.
Yeah.
So I
Correct.
had nothing to lose. I had no reputation. I had no. So that's where I learned to let go my ego also. Because today I see students, they have masters. They have
Correct.
this, very very invisible and unsaid
Atrocious
ego,
ego. Correct.
which is big, because
Correct.
they would not probably do certain things because
Correct.
hey, why did I do my masters for them? I'm not.
Exactly.
तो वो मैंने shred कर लिया. No inhibitions, no preconceived notions about anything, and then whatever came, it was just about nothing to lose, always to gain.
Always to gain.
तो मैंने बोला यार इसमें से भी कुछ सीखने मिल रहा है. आई एम गेटिंग सम रिटर्न्स आउट ऑफ दिस.
Of course.
यहाँ तो मेरी जर्नी, आई एम सेविंग टाइम, सो आई एम गेनिंग एवरीथिंग. आई डोंट नो हु एल्स इज लूजिंग. आई डोंट वांट टू जज देम, बट आई एम नॉट लूजिंग
And it's
एनीथिंग.
just my gain.
So the stress, of course, with age, that time it was
Mm.
very energy levels are very different. We could manage all that things. We don't have responsibilities like family and things like that. But still, it was exciting. Every day I used to have, because maybe in my business or the dance part, there's some character who's teaching me something, and I'm waiting for that to happen. So
Right.
balanced out with studies, then studies also. I mean, again, academics में भी strategy लगानी पड़ती है.
Correct.
So when you're put into the situation, I think it will happen.
Just got to survive.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you one question on that. Do you know how to dance?
I know, but I don't generally.
You don't generally.
I don't.
So life is all about, I know, but I might not do it. But the moment, if I put you on a surface which is getting hotter and hotter,
I'll dance.
You will dance, right? No
Correct.
matter what, whether you know it or don't know it, you will dance.
I'll dance.
तो यही अपनी लाइफ की कहानी है. नीचे गर्म है,
Correct.
अब बसंती नाच. So if
Right.
you put when you put a self burner, you put that burner down there, I think you will learn eventually.
Nice. So I'm going to take a different direction from here onwards for the conversation. So from doing a job. Okay. So firstly, how long did you sustain that job, or how long were you being employed by someone?
Right. So I'll just give you. I did my masters. I did everything. I'm a marketeer by learning also. So I did it around what for 6 years, 6 to
Okay.
7 years, 6 years I think. Yeah. And when I left it, that's a different story. It's an interesting story, but I'll let you ask your question first so that no.
So a job, multiple sides of businesses, an education which was, like a stock market chart. Through that journey, how did you decide that that has to be the name of the book, the Employability Quotient Decoded? I'm sure decoded is, of course, from your perspective, you kind of broken down your own journey, but why do you call it Employability Quotient?
I'll take you back a little bit on this also. I'm a marketeer by in my brain.
Correct.
And always been an educator at heart.
Okay.
As I said, I started interacting with a lot of people.
Correct.
So impacting people, making them feel good, simplifying things was wo aa gaya. And through creativity, you can go
Of course,
anywhere.
it learns. Yeah.
So what I started doing was I started interacting with students who probably had a fixed notion, saying that for me to get a good job, I have to certainly do a graduation and certainly do a master's,
Right.
without even knowing what a job is. So I wanted to break that thing, and that's where I started interacting with a lot of graduate and postgraduate students, saying that you don't need a degree for a job. मेरा experience था ही.
Correct. Right.
And what you need is the right mindset,
The right attitude and the mindset.
the right attitude, and probably a little bit of clarity of how you would like to plan things.
Correct.
It has to eventually come. So I started interacting with a lot of students who were struggling to build their own presence, nothing to have on the resume, uh, internships or something which were not, kind of, they were just,
Just a
failed
formality.
exercise
Right.
for them. It didn't add any value to anything. While I started doing that, I realized that there's a whole lot of people out there, especially someone who's finishing their masters, they still don't know why they are doing their masters. I used to ask
Correct.
people, why have you chosen, MBA as your master's program? And they didn't have an answer other than saying that इससे मेरा salary अच्छा होगा. I will get a better salary if
Correct.
I do masters.
Right.
Now I don't know who is putting this in their head. Maybe that's. So I wanted to actually tell them that's not the case. And I started doing this different kind of training sessions, which were no theory. It was all practical application facilitation workshops. So मेरे क्लासरूम मतलब मेरे सेशंस कैंपस के बाहर होते थे. मेरे असाइनमेंट प्रोजेक्ट में उनको I should strip them with their money, and there used to be a business project which used to be there.
Oh.
So there were n number of things I was doing.
Correct.
And I did that for good, so this I've started doing past 10 years maybe. So 2007, 8 mein. People used to see me, and now I have a beard and all. People used to see me without beard. They used to think, ये क्या बताएगा
ये
हमको?
क्या हमें बताएगा? Right. Correct.
In fact, even the faculty members used to
कल
think.
का बच्चा, right? That's
हाँ.
the very this thing. It's a very common thing in our country.
Yeah, and when you know that सामने वाला इतना softy दिख रहा है और इतना young है, तो ये क्या बताएगा?
क्या ही बता देगा हम? Correct.
But so that's where I learned the other trick. When you have control on your skill and talent, you can always build authority if you are unique.
Correct. Absolutely.
आप authority कब build कर सकते हो? When you are unique. When they have not experienced something that I have to offer, that means I have the authority.
You have the authority.
Whether my age is 19-year-old or 30-year-old or 40, doesn't matter. And then I put myself into a strong position saying that, they can't do what I'm doing. So let me gain authority by doing it a lot of places.
Correct.
तो मैं वो spree पे निकल गया था. जहाँ पे मैं कंटिन्यूसली या तो कॉर्पोरेट्स के साथ या स्टूडेंट्स के साथ या तो टीचर्स के साथ ये सब प्रोग्राम्स करता था. आई यूज्ड टू डू दैट. एंड व्हेन यू केम टू द बुक, एम्प्लॉयबिलिटी कोशेंट जो है, it's not a mainstream term. You will find EQ, there's emotional quotient, intelligence quotient, spiritual quotient.
Correct.
Today you'll find passion quotient.
Passion quotient, right.
But what is employability defined as? So I thought I will coin a term, एक equation में form करूँगा उसका, कि employability quotient is equal to what plus what plus what. वो मेरा एक ध्यान में आया. I took all my journey, I took all my learning, I took everything that could be a practically applicable thing for any student, whether वो engineering कर रहा है, commerce कर रहा है, MBA कर रहा है. अगर वो उसका नाम है तो वो ब्रांड होना चाहिए, क्योंकि अगर वो कमोडिटी है तो नेगोशिएशन सिर्फ प्राइस पे हो.
प्राइस पे होगा.
मतलब उनकी लैंग्वेज में सैलरी होगी, वो सामने बोल देंगे कि आई कैन ओनली गिव यू दिस मच बिकॉज यू आर नॉट इनफ, तो वो कॉम्प्रोमाइज़ करके चला जाएगा. बट अगर एक
Correct.
ब्रांड हो, आपने कुछ वैल्यू लेकर आए हो, तो देन समवेयर यू गेट द अथॉरिटी टू नेगोशिएट, सो डिस्कस, and you can create multiple options for yourself. So my intent was that everyone should have that employability quotient in them. That's where the name came, employability quotient. आपको अगर पता नहीं है तो थोड़ा decode कर दिया है मैंने उसको. And very very practical exercises mentioned in this book. So nothing very heavy. कोई भी उठा के उसको कर सकता है.
How did you go about marketing this? Because honestly, the everybody is an author these days, right? आजकल बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो, and especially in the world of internet, plagiarism is a teething issue, right? How did you go about marketing uh, your book in a way that you could help the other person understand that this is not your journey, as in Piyush's journey, but this is the outcome of that journey, which is going to ease out your journey.
Right. So let me tell you very frankly, this book is published in 2018. It's pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Yeah. And even if you pick up the book today, a lot of things you can apply it even today. Even in the post-COVID scenario, when a lot of employability quotient of factors are changed,
Correct.
you can still apply those because it's the foundational level.
Foundation is the same, right?
So the interesting part is I never wrote a book. I didn't write a book to market. I'll tell you what happened. I was doing a lot of things.
Right.
So you said कि फिर branding कहाँ से, brand strategies कैसे बने आप,
Correct.
how you.
Correct.
So my mainstream core function is brand building, brand strategy building, marketing, communication. That's my area. This has always been my passion project. Interacting, making an impact, making sure I'm interacting with the youth so they teach me something. Now, what happened with time was I was exchanging a lot of, as you said, time against the outcome. So if I'm at one institute doing a session for say 2 weeks, Piyush is not there at the same time at the other institute.
Correct.
So I had this thing going in my head that I need to make a product which goes to many people. So I might interact, but then what is followed up is with a product so that I can start doing their work. And that's where 2017 start or mid 17, I started saying that I'll write a book so that it goes to many people. But everyone comes across a creative writer's block.
Right.
And I was also a victim of that, so I stopped writing in between. 2018, my daughter was born.
Okay.
And that's where again one more thing came. What are you leaving
for your child?
Not for my child. What are you? So the intent was, let me make this year something to be memorable, or some good impact memory that I said, let me complete this, and I got this published in 2018. So 2018, 2 people were born. My daughter was born, and an author was born. So that's what the year is marking me for that.
Correct.
I always remember that. So I never marketed this. I said, wherever I'm going, I'll try and cut down my time and I will make sure that the arrangement is such a way that I come for some time, the book goes to everyone.
Correct.
This also has some questions,
Right.
so
Right.
like exercises, so
Right.
it
Right.
becomes a handbook.
Correct.
And then of course I'll go back and do some review, or say map their journey or give them some other inputs. So it was purely from that intention. But because because the position of authority of the author came into picture, people started calling me for speaking gigs. Why don't you come and speak here? Why
Speak.
don't you come and speak there? So that's the marketing that I've had by far. I would still want this to reach out to many people. I would still want to do a revision or revised edition of this, which I have in cards. But yeah, I mean, that's how I would not say that it was for marketing. It was just to solve my problem that I was putting in too much time into
Correct.
going and training it there. So I
Right.
made it into a product.
How has how has this entire journey, this entire, you know, rough patch, smooth patch, rough patch, smooth patch, how has this entire journey curated you as, you know, someone, or I would call it a brand artist, you know, someone who straight away looks at what's pumping blood in an organization. Let's correct that first.
So what has become, a part of me is, like now I'll come to how my things got aligned. My behavior or my actions or my decisions that I took they've made me cut the clutter.
Right.
So the entire making of what I do professionally is cutting down clutter. So when I said I get paid to
Correct.
think
Correct.
either different or deep.
Deep.
Why? Because I'm a barber. मैं काट देता हूँ खट खट खट. Because the more you remove things out,
Remove things out.
you get more clarity on what is the real focus or what is the real area that needs to be someone needs to focus. So when we talk about brand building, we principally we follow DNA first, design second philosophy.
Correct.
Why? Because you can start with design, but it can never build a DNA. You should start with DNA, the foundation.
It'll build
You
a
can
good.
always add design to it. So
Yeah,
for
that's
me,
important.
brand building is like, or rather, the initial phase of branding, I call it pregnancy. I'll tell you why. Because when parents or husband and wife conceive, I always say that they both conceive.
Correct.
The wife goes through the period of 9 months. Now, in this 9 months, no parent is going to buy the color of the dress.
Right.
No one is going to buy the what color toys you have to have. They will never buy whether for a boy and a girl. No, no, no.
Correct.
What the focus is to get a healthier baby out there.
Correct.
So you're focusing on a DNA, the development,
Right.
right? And you're still giving all the nutrients internally.
Correct.
You don't know, but you're still giving nutrients. Now, when the baby is out in the world, your first primary focus is the baby healthy.
Is the baby healthy? Right.
And sustaining the thing.
The world. Yeah.
And then you say now it's a boy or a girl, and then you say now we put this kind of dress, this kind of
Right.
anything to do with external factors. I will put this now. Think of it of your brand and a business. So when I say branding, a lot of people start with color, design, logo.
This is how it should look.
Here in branding, you at least have a control what you want to bring out. At least that control is there.
Correct.
So that's the only difference between a biological pregnancy and a business pregnancy. You know what you want at the end.
Right.
But you have the control to define the DNA of how strong it's going to be, how competitive it's going to be, how unique it's going to be, how it's going to stand out in all the market that you're going to fight, how it's going to appeal to the audience that they want to attract as a brand. All that is in your control. So then why don't you focus on that, and the design will eventually happen.
Correct. So when you, either ways, like either you approach a brand or a company, or when a company approaches you, generally they would have thought of something that this is how it should look, right? The external factors, the design of it. or they would want ke this is how it should look. They would have done it for a certain number of years or hours, whatever. And during this process, there's a I would say there's a reflux, there's a resistance that gets built up, right? They say कि नहीं हमें तो यही चाहिए. How do you break that down and you tell them to focus, or rather you guide them to look at the DNA and then differentiate them, that this is what you want, but this is what your DNA is saying.
Right. One more belief that I have, and I always tell people also, if you want the right answer, the primary need is to ask the right question.
Absolutely.
Right?
Right.
I ask the right question. If they don't have the answers, it's an educating way of telling them that you need to first focus on this. So when you ask the right questions to them,
Right.
which are going to either have the right answers or they would probably be in a confused state, it's a realization that I was probably focusing on the wrong
On the
things
wrong
early.
thing.
I mean, it's too early for me to talk about this. Let's
Right.
first sort this out, and then
Right.
definitely these guys are going to build a design for me.
Okay.
So I think that's the whole thing.
So as a strategist, right, someone who's really focused on the heart, on the DNA or the core of any brand, how, so people must have asked you this a lot of times, that if I change my design, the way I look, so if I change the way I look, to an extent I'll have to change the way I operate, which of course is going to hit the bottom line, and that's very important for everyone. How do you guide them through that journey?
I just tell them one thing: branding में पैसा नहीं लगता है. You don't need money for branding. And they all look at me and they say, what are you talking
What
about?
are you
You're going to
talking-
charge a bomb to me, just to give your 2 cents, to the business.
Right.
I tell them, I explain them, branding does not require money. Marketing, whatever you're creating, requires money. Branding requires behavior.
Right.
और behavior को पैसा नहीं लगता है.
Behavior को पैसा नहीं लगता.
नहीं लगता है.
Correct.
So right from the leadership, why do we do at the DNA level, and why I only work with the leadership, is because when you start from the top, your behavior trickles down, your brand builds a culture, your
Correct.
brand builds behavior. Behavior को पैसा लगता ही नहीं है. I'm just trying to say that this is how the brand should behave.
Behave.
Now, for behavior, you require a personality.
Right.
This is where we help entrepreneurs to craft that
Personality, the persona.
And for persona, so if I have to become an Amitabh Bachchan, or if I have to become a Shah Rukh Khan, so I have to decide, right?
Correct.
What I need is purpose.
Purpose.
Your purpose builds your personality.
Personality.
Your personality builds your behavior. Your behavior in long-term, consistent manner is a particular brand,
It's
whether
your
it's
brand.
a personal brand or a business brand.
Right.
And that's the name
On
on purpose brand.
Right. How did you think of it? On purpose brand.
So I was always I always want
Correct.
every individual to be on purpose. मेरे DNA में है वो.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen by birth. It happened by a lot of situation.
Okay.
That I thought that everyone should be. If I'm on purpose, I should tell everyone to be on purpose, and that's how the book came, and that's how everything. So when I said, when I talk so much about it, I said every brand should be on some purpose.
Correct.
It was so simple then. What's the name of the venture? On purpose, brand. We would put your brand on purpose, and we will try our best to put it on purpose with everything, right from what you speak or what you build, what you speak, what you behave, and of course what you see. I mean, the visual part of it. So
Correct.
the design is just a medium of how you communicate.
How you communicate.
So whether it's visual design or verbal design, communication design, it's just the outcome.
So Piyush, there's this contagious energy and confidence that you radiate, right? When I say contagious, I mean, you sense it. Anyone talking to you will always have that confidence coming to them. How do you keep at it? Because of course, and the reason for this is business is always ups and downs. It's
Right.
not a valley.
Right.
It's a whole lot of cliffs that you have to uphill and climb down.
Right.
How do you make sure that at least whatever the outcome is, your confidence remains at a certain level, because eventually, it's business,
Right.
financials coming,
Right.
financials going.
Right.
How do you keep at it?
Okay. So there is, in our lives, there is not just one dimension. So
Right.
business is part of my life. Business is not the only dimension of my life,
Correct.
right?
Right.
So when you said about how do you maintain that energies, or how do you even come up exhiberate that confidence, now there is a small thing I'd like to share. कि एक time ऐसा भी था where I had around 635 rupees in my account,
Oh,
but I had to close some deal. I had to meet someone at the coffee shop. I still made sure that I was the one who's treating the coffee, or
treating.
that I paid the bill, say around 325 rupees or something like that. Again, you just so calculative in your mind, but
Correct.
you want to make things happen. By evening, that thing happened. Now you will say ये तो ठीक है, बहुत ज़्यादा ही outrageously risky है. अब तो option ही नहीं है. But when you say about confidence, no, the other dimension to someone's life is family.
Right.
And all my confidence has ever been built up or come because of my family, whether it be my parents who let me do and still believe in me. My mom says yeah be unsettled abhi
Of course, parents, right.
so but my dad has always backed up with things that do what you want to do, if do what you feel is right, because they see it happening, right? They see some
Correct.
good things happening, they see some impact happening. So
Correct.
even if it is not giving me that success immediately, it's still something that I did, as a part of my life. And of course, then when you get married, your other pillar is your wife,
Wife,
and
child.
child comes later, but your wife who's, so someone has to anchor it, right? Confidence doesn't come off on shallow things. Confidence comes when you have an anchor. And I
Correct.
think my dimension is that family dimension, or that anchor is my, say, my wife, my parents. They've anchored there, and they said, we believe that you can. So being lucky with that also, but I think that's where the confidence also comes into, when I have to be at my best at my work or my business, or in the down times when I say that pick yourself up and do. It's all about that pillar, because I go back to that, for anything. I might go and cry, I might go and do something, but it's
Correct. It's
back
there.
there. Yeah, it's that pillar.
It's there.
So there's no business support, business up and down. Find out that dimension that gives you,
That
becomes your
anchor
pillar.
that holds you.
Yeah,
Right.
and anchors you, that we still believe you need to be confident, because your confidence is our
Our
confidence
confidence.
into something.
Correct.
So that's been the secret, I feel, in that. Not a secret, but the dimension that always kept me saying, let's go ahead and do it. Even today I feel scared, even
Of
today.
course. Yeah.
And even today I still want to try new things. नया मॉडल बनाएंगे, नया सर्विस बनाएंगे, न्यू अलायंसेस, न्यू पीपल, न्यू थिंग्स, समथिंग डिफरेंट एंड यूनिक टू ऑफर आउट देयर. बट फियर के साथ वो कॉन्फिडेंस अगर वो बैक है, वो जो सॉलिडिटी है, then you're a soldier who's ready to fight with it.
Great. So, an amazing conversation, Piyush, that we've had. And, one last question, because I thank you, before I thank you for joining me today. And of course, I'm looking forward to now, on purpose brand coming together, two brains, two experiences coming together and setting down, setting up, on purpose brand. So that, of course, our next conversation goes there. But before I thank you for today's conversation, I really want to ask you that what is that bigger goal that you're working on? So all of us have a certain vision deep down our heart. Okay, whatever I'm doing, it has to eventually take me there.
Right.
Right. So what is that bigger vision that you have at the front of your head, or at the core of your whatever you do, that you're working towards?
So there are two aspects to it. I would rather put it that way. Um, very simply, if you say in the core work, or the core profession that I'm into, in terms of the branding and all the things, I envision a space, a space. It's a physical space or any kind of space, virtual space, where entrepreneurs not just come together to say discuss a particular agenda, or say network, or say sell each other, or things like that. Not just a place where it's only about how I can get more business, or how I can leverage someone else, but I wish to have a space where entrepreneurs come and raise their creative thinking levels, because no matter um, how engineered a business is, or how logical a business, or how just, you know, it can be any business,
Correct.
as boring as anything, as boring as someone who's supplying ice to all the hotels.
Hotels.
But that entrepreneur also needs to elevate in terms of thought and what they could do as impact using some creative thinking. So I want to create a space where it becomes a place to express, a place to, kind of even share expertise, and try out new things, new ideas, come together and do something different. And that is my, when it comes to, when I'm talking about entrepreneurs. And if you want to say deep down, there's a secret vision or secret wish that I have is, I want to really change the education canvas. I have realized
Correct.
that, all my learnings, or whatever I want to share, you can't do it when you're at the end of your, I realized that when I was training also with students, they don't come up with a mindset of, molding themselves. They
Right.
want something, they want a
They
job.
want, correct.
What if I do the same thing and I put it, say, earlier, say around 10th, or, or say in school? If I the mindset could be molded there, all these things are not required. They still do start doing different things, and they
Correct.
learn by their own. They create their own books.
Right.
They create multiple, there'll be multiple authors that way.
Right.
So that is one thing I would somehow like to change the education canvas, anywhere where I can contribute of what could be changed, or probably even start a school later sometime in life.
Sometime
I
later.
don't know about it. I have no idea, but
Of course,
that could be,
it's going to
that's
happen.
something that I really feel from inside.
Very thoughtful. Very thoughtful. So, thank you, Piyush. Today's conversation was an amazing one, and I look forward to hosting you once again to specifically talk about the employability quotient. So, we're going to break down the equation and
Right.
explore that. But thank you so much. It was lovely catching up, and looking forward to the next one.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I am actually, I feel honored being here on your show. And जाते जाते एक मैसेज देना चाहूँगा जो मेरे बुक में भी है. So if you open up my book, there is a quote by Dalai Lama. So I read it, and then that's where, that's what triggered me to even complete this book. So that quote is, every person lives twice,
Right.
and the second life starts when he realizes he has one.
He just has one.
He just has
Right.
one. So I would like that to, go as a message that, if you feel that, you're still, in an exploratory stage, just know that you have only one life.
Correct.
Just do what
Do
you
it.
feel that, that will do you, gives you, of course, the happiness of doing
Correct.
it, and of course it kind of builds some value to others. And I'm sure that journey will be very, very interesting, very challenging, but
Of course.
very, very fulfilling at the end
Right.
of it. So that's a small message that I would like to give your audience.
Indeed, a thoughtful one, and thank you, Piyush. Looking forward to having you again on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thank
See
you.
you.